Hey, I'm Richie Beretta. I'm a mixer and producer, and we're here today in my studio in Queens, New York. So I'm pretty much self-taught, though later on in my career, I was lucky enough to find a mentor, and that's very valuable to have. But I never had an assistant's gig or an internship. I was never a second in the studio. So the way I learned was when I was a kid, music was taught to me pretty much immediately. And when you learn an instrument, you want to record yourself. So in my house, my father had a spare room where he had all the studio gear set up from when he was in a band in the 70s. And I would break in the room and get in trouble. And I think my dad realized that if he didn't teach me how to use this stuff the right way, I would probably break the stuff. So he taught me how to work a tape machine, cut, overdub, splice tape, mix on a board, and then print that mix onto a final master tape. I thought that gave me a great foundation to go and learn this stuff on my own. And the way I got better at it was by pretty much taking any job I could, never saying no. I would always record my own band along with other local bands. And when I finally thought I was good enough to work on bigger projects, I realized that because I wasn't an assistant or because I never became an intern, I lacked the network that you gain from being in a studio environment. And I thought to myself, well, I have to come up with a way to sort of jump in. And I thought the best way to do that was through the audience. The way I would do that was by remixing songs that were already out and leveraging the popularity of the song. And luckily that worked. It got the attention of some pretty big artists like Major Lazer and Beyonce. I got to do remixes for them. And then after that, much more mix and production work came in, and that's how I got here. Okay, I don't want to get into the discussion about analog versus digital, but I will say analog is very, very important to me. I think the argument between what is better or should one replace the other is stupid. It's 2019, and as a future generation of mixers, we need to innovate with what we have and what already exists, right? So I think analog is very important in today's music making process. Especially for me as a mixer, because a lot of the producers that I work with make the stuff on a laptop, or if they're a band, they're even triggering samples, it's amp modeling. There's an absence of analog in the record making process these days. So I think it's valuable for me as a mixer to reintroduce this music back into the analog domain where it could interact with a piece of gear that will amplify the emotional and rhythmic response of the music. I don't think that could be replicated as well in the box as it can in real life, which is why it's important for me to stay somewhat analog. However, when you work in the box, it's quick, it's accurate, there's no recall, you can work on multiple projects at once, and that's all also valuable. So when I made the choice to do a half and half hybrid type of thing, I needed to make sure that I kept all the benefits of just being 100% in the box so I can stay competitive with in-the-box mixers. Mainly speed is a big deal. So what I did was I set up my rig so that I have all of my mix buses analog. All my parallel mix buses are analog. And my hardware inserts are only used on, I have to make sure that I'm going to use these things on every session. So my hardware inserts are just vocals, bass, and drums. Things that I'm going to use every session, right? Everything else is going to be done in the box. And what that does is it gives me the speed of working in the box while enjoying all the emotional and compelling value I get when I work and I throw something through a piece of gear. Recall is really fast. I figured out a way to do it. I can recall a session in like 5 minutes, and that's all through simple calibration. I'd like to think people like to work with me because I really give a shit about music. What that means is I'm very much aware of how a record affects me. And I think that it's important that the audience gets to experience that as well, because it's special. It's what makes the song last for a long time. And everything else to me is secondary. All the tricks I can do, with gear or with the computer in Pro Tools, that's really secondary. What matters to me is how I'm feeling and how the song is, changing me emotionally. And every choice I make is dictated by how I'm affected by the record. That's the only thing that matters to me. I think my favorite feature of Bounce Boss is just the simple fact that I can take a link, send it to a client, and they can upload stems directly to me. I don't have to worry about expiring links. I don't have to worry about the file transfer website sending the alert into my spam folder. And what this does is it puts my client in charge of their own files. And this is really important when there's a lot of different producers working on the same record. Well, I may get a kick drum from someone over here and a vocal from someone over there, and they send me a link, and I have to go through my email and figure out who's sending me what. And it's very easy to lose track that way, and I can't lose track because I have to be professional. So what this does is it now makes it the client's responsibility to collect the files and dump them in all one spot. And if they don't want to do that, they could just simply send the link out to each producer and say, send your files into this bank, and everybody's happy. It's amazing. The other thing that I think is really special about Bounce Boss is it finally allows me to build a better relationship with my clients quicker, especially new clients, that I haven't worked and built a rapport with yet. I don't do the limitations on communication when it comes to revisions. I don't have that talk. I think it's a bummer. I don't want to give rules to my clients because it's a drag, So I never say, hey, don't contact me after 3 a.m. or, I'm having dinner with my girlfriend, don't call me, or if you're a band, only one person can send me notes. All the other notes are going to be discussed. That's a drag. You don't want to bum out the client. This gives me a way to allow the band or the client or the A&R or their parents or whoever's involved a way to give a revision note. They'll know I see it. I don't have to transcribe anything onto a notepad file and with the time code and all that. It's all there. It's all time stamped, and it's all organized, and that saves me time. And it also saves me a conversation that I don't want to have, that I never ever wanted to have with my client. In fact, when I found out about Bounce Boss, the first thing I thought was, why the fuck didn't I think of this? I think the most powerful thing that you could do for your songs is come up with a workflow that strategically leads you to a better final product. What I mean by that is, personally, for me, I like to work backwards. So I'll write the tune, in its most basic form. Maybe it's a chord progression and some drums. If I'm working with a top liner, then they'll give me a melody and maybe some lyrics. And then I'll stop and listen before I let all that creativity loose. And I'll think to myself, how is this song supposed to sound like when it's done? Right? How is it supposed to behave? What's the audience supposed to feel? And what that does is it forces me to only include things that will support my original vision for the song. And it makes me leave out everything that's unnecessary. These days when I get records to mix, the track counts are in the hundreds and 200s. And even though all the sounds in the session are beautiful and well thought out and played great, I only need 50% of the stuff that's in that session for the song to do what it's supposed to do, right? So if you come up with a workflow that sort of forces you to have a much more potent and pure product, you won't have to worry about taking the time to search for unnecessary things, and you'll have a better song faster. I can't speak enough about the value of communication. And anybody who's looking to hire a mixer or someone to help them get their songs across the finish line should really understand that there is a great value in dialogue between the person you hire and yourself. These days, a lot of engineers are so far removed from the artist because of all the people in between relaying messages. It's easy for everyone to lose sight of what that song is supposed to really accomplish. We need to be on the same team. We're all working to make a great song, right? And have it last for a really, really long time, because that's important. The way you do this is by communicating with each other. The best projects are when I, learn from my client and when my client learns from me. And it's one thing to be creatively aligned, but it's much more powerful when your intentions are aligned. And you get that through communication.